I'm going to teach you a move that you can do with your lead wrist, which I was guarantee will unlock way more accuracy and way more distance. And I think you might have been given some poor information. There's a very good chance that you've been prescribed a drill which I think is actually holding you back, and I would advise that you avoid. We'll come to that at the end. But let's start off by just hitting a shot. Okay, pretty good shot. Leaked it, touch right, but I would be pretty happy with that. So let's have a look at what the data shows. So at impact, this is really key. At impact, my lead wrist was pretty flat. It was slightly kind of arched or bowed. That was at impact. You can see there it says -6. So what that means is, if you have a look at my lead wrist, it's not flat here. So when I set up to the golf ball, it certainly wasn't flat. But when I made contact with the ball, it was pretty much in this position, pretty flat. So I'm sure that you have seen videos, or you've potentially been told that a flat lead wrist at impact is key. Now I would agree with that. Okay, that's what I would try and look for, and that's what I achieve. However, if we expand the graph on the shot that I've just hit, what you'll see is that line constantly moves down and up and down and up and down and up. That graph moving up and down is basically my wrist moving this way through the golf swing, okay, in this sort of fashion. So through the golf swing, it's doing that. If I could show you what it's doing based on that graph, it would start here, it goes this way, it goes this way, it goes this way, and it goes this way. There's a lot of movement, okay? So there are points in that swing where my wrist is at 0. Points, that's the key message. It's never constant. So whilst I do want a lead wrist that's flat at impact, it is never flat, 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 flat. That is not what it is doing. It is always going from this position to this position pretty quickly. And there's a point between this position and this position where it's pretty flat. That happens to be where I make contact with the golf ball. It's timing. I would never want any golfer to hit a golf ball where they feel like their lead wrist is flat all the way through. We might have seen clips of Colin Morikawa, Bryson. There are a couple of golfers who have to do that based on grip styles and that kind of stuff, but for the most part, that's not going to help. So why is it so important that we go from here to here? Well, imagine this. If I picked up this golf ball and held it in the palm of my lead hand, and you asked me to imagine it's like a frisbee, and I wanted to throw it as far down this way as I can, I would use the wrist like this to create me some speed and some power. I would go back and I would arch my wrist, I would really unwind my body, and then I would take my wrist from this very arched position and I would fling it through to this extended position. That would give me a huge amount of speed in that frisbee. The same thing applies to the golf swing. If we can get your wrist doing this, it gives you speed in the club. That's really important. So for it to go from here to here, it obviously at some point needs to be here in this arched position. So when I go to a delivery here, watch what happens if I cup the wrist this way. What happens to that club face? It is open, it is pointing up to the sky. So this is my wrist extended, okay? Extended means open. So let's go back to our frisbee analogy. Imagine I've got my wrist extended. I wind up here, I've got no power. It can't go anywhere because it's already extended. So when I'm trying to throw that frisbee, it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like I'd struggle to get any speed into it. So when the wrist is extended, what can we say? Club face is open. We don't really want that. And you're not going to be able to create any speed. Two things that are just really going to hold you back as a golfer. You're going to be slicing it and slicing it not very far. What we want you to do is get the wrist in this arch position, which controls the face, which gives you unbelievable accuracy, and then when we can move it from here to here, we get speed. So we get accuracy and we get speed. Now, I don't know about you, but those are two things that I want in my golf game. So we've got to learn how this wrist works, and I've got a drill here which is going to help you, and then as I say at the end of the video we'll come on to that one which is being used a lot, but I would urge you kind of stay away from it. So what I'm going to get you to do is learn how this wrist works. Okay, and let's do that first without a golf club. So I'm going to take my setup here. I'm going to imagine I've got a golf club, and you'll notice that I've got a little bit of cupping in that wrist. If I show you what that number would be, you can see that it's around about plus 23. That's a little bit of shape in here. That's natural when I hold the golf club. But when I get to my delivery position here, notice how it's minus 24. It's gone the opposite. It's gone to that slightly arched position. That might be slightly exaggerated, but that's me feeling where that needs to be. So I'm slightly arched. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my body and I'm going to take my wrist and extend it. So now you can see it's extended by about 4 to 6. Now I feel like that's giving me a lot of freedom through the ball. Like I said, there's certainly no ideas of me holding it, trying to keep it arched or keep it bowed all the way through. I'm freely allowing it to go from this arch position to this cupped position. Now as I'm doing that, there's some body pivot, and as I'm doing that, there's also some rotation of the arm. This is happening. So watch what happens when I hit a little shot doing that. I'm going to go setup. You can see my wrist is plus 29, plus 30. I find my delivery. You can see there it's 0, so that's pretty flat. When it's 0, I've now got somewhere I can move it through. And there we have that wrist extended at this point. But did you see the ball flight? It was low, it was flighted, it was struck. You can see my impact was minus 2, so it was pretty flat. And I did, you can see the graph there, it was moving. That is how you get the perfect impact. It's freedom. You want your wrist to feel like it can do something. That's how we get the control of the face. That's how we get the speed. That's how we get them married up. And that's how you get those beautiful shots that are flighted with speed. I'm now going to hit a shot over a short distance where I do my best to try and keep my wrist as flat as I can through the golf ball. I'm only going to hit it half distance, but I'm going to try and keep it as flat as I can through the golf ball. Oh, that feels awful. That feels awful. And you can see the graph, if I expand that, it was much flatter. You can see that the graph was much flatter. I was close to 0, but then I held it. But it just felt so forced and so manufactured. It didn't feel like a swing. It didn't feel like I had flow or speed or energy. It felt horrible. And if I was playing holes that were 50 yards, I could potentially do that, but I don't. I play normal golf courses with the holes of 400 yards. So it doesn't work. We can't do it that way. So the little drill I want you to do is in here, arch that wrist, feel like the palm is facing up towards the sky. You can exaggerate it if you wanted a drill, which puts the face down, and then you're going to turn, and as you turn, you're going to release that wrist, and as you do that, with a bit of body turn, you're going to hit these beautiful low flighted shots that get you into these perfect positions. So at the start, I mentioned a drill that I didn't think was great for your golf game, that many people get prescribed. What is that drill? Well, it's this one. I'm sure you've seen lots of golfers take an alignment stick, or suggest you take an alignment stick, hold it by the side of your golf club, place it to the side of the body. And a little caveat, I've probably done videos on this before. So just put it out there. No need to go in the comments and say, you did this a couple of years ago. I used to coach this. I don't coach it anymore for the reasons that we've gone through in this video. Using hat motion has really opened my eyes to what actually happens. So we get told often that at setup, this should contact your left side, and you want to be hitting shots where it never contacts you on the way through. So we feel like we're doing this on the way through. Now, there are some benefits to this drill. It can, for some, help them get their body moving. So it can be okay to engage a bit more turn, but it's really not great for learning what the wrists do. Because what it's going to do is it's going to basically force you to do something that is very unnatural. Something that actually doesn't happen in a golf swing. That we don't see great players do, that's not going to give you speed, it's not going to give you the distance, it's not going to give you the strike. It's okay for the body, but when I do the right thing, oh, it thumps me in the side. And when we do that drill, we get told to keep that away from you. So yeah, there might be some of you out there who can get a little bit from that drill, but for the most part, I think it actually holds you back and it encourages you to create something that doesn't actually happen. Great golf swings use wrists and they release them through the ball. And if you can do that, you're going to hit way better golf shots.